The last question I really wanted to ask, and maybe this points more to some of the subsequent work that you've done after the book, is this idea, which we see a little bit also, I think, in David Marriott's work, but the idea that Blackness could be understood in anti-Black racist context as itself an instantiation of the Lacanian real.
I prefer to think of Blackness in terms of, as I was saying, a kind of radical antagonism that exists or can exist within society or manifests from time to time within society. I think of Blackness in terms of deontologized negativity, which becomes or is rendered positive through certain actions. So the first point being definitely away from any sort of identity formation. So Blackness not just is not Black as identity, it's also not exclusively associated with identities that are Black. Blackness, as I understand it, or try to understand it, or misread, is connected to Fanon's non-being as a fundamental condition of being that can only render possible a kind of politics of emancipation that is not driven by the fantasy of wholesome, harmonious, pluralistic existences between different groups, communities, individuals. So in that sense, therefore, if it's not claiming a certain identity or symbolic presence, it is actually that which is drawing your attention to what renders the symbolic or the master signifier guaranteeing the symbolic holding together as empty, fictitious, and incapable of authorizing in the immediate and the long run. Now, again, this might come across to many as being intensely negative in terms of thinking about the symbolic. In fact, it can be also argued that, is it even possible to exist outside the symbolic? What would that mean? But I am not thinking of Blackness or non-being as for upending the symbolic as a whole, but understanding what the symbolic is, and therefore reimagining ways through which this symbolic arrangement can be better suited in order to create equitable social relations between all.
What you're saying reminds me of is an idea that you foreground in the very closing pages of the book, where you referred to Todd McGowan in thinking about what the universal might be. And the quote in this respect, which is right towards the end, 195, page 195 of the book, drawing on McGowan, the universal is not what subjects have in common, but what they don't have in common. The cut that blocks the social structure's completion for the subject. This insight cuts against the common sense conception of universality that associates it with the master signifier. So we only have a few moments left, really, but I wondered if that might be something to reflect upon just by way of conclusion.
I think what I'm saying in this book is, even though the commonsensical idea, and based on McGowan mostly, and others, a few others, even though the idea of the universal is often presented in positive terms, symbolic positive terms, white, enlightened, Western Europe, so on and so on, If we move to the real, which is the human as lacking, then irrespective of those differences between the positives in the West versus the negatives in the East, which are both equally fictitious because these masters signify guaranteeing them both are empty. It really doesn't make any sense. We can think of a universal based on our shared condition as ontologically lacking. Therefore, coming back again to the fact that if lack is the fundamental condition driving us into enunciating myself as better than yours, can a politics, social politics around that fundamental condition and not around the imaginaries of I am better than you for XYZ reasons, and here are the symbolic supports for those reasons, allow us to think more imaginatively about the way we want to imagine society in the immediate present as well as in the future. And I think Freudian Lacanian psychoanalysis, when applied to thinking about the social formations of the social and social relations, help us, or guide us, or give us some points to think about, think with, and think through in terms of imagining what this society would be.
Great. Gautam, thank you so much for your time. There's so many thought-provoking, ongoing challenges of thought that you foregrounded for us. And I suspect that we both, and hopefully jointly, will have a lot more thinking and work to do in that area. But thanks again.
No, thank you so much.